Hey guys, and welcome to the Fish Room. I'm Rachel O'Leary, and today I'm super excited to tell you that I am partnering with Tannin Aquatics and its owner Scott Fellman to bring you guys something I'm really excited about. If you're new here, welcome. I do a lot of planted aquariums and a lot of small fish as well as shrimp and other invertebrates. And one thing that has been a common thread in my fish keeping over the past 15 years is that I've relied heavily on natural elements in order to provide the best environment possible for my critters. Anything from driftwood to live plants to leaf litter. And in recent years, I've really branched out into a lot more of the botanicals. And what I mean by that is the pods, all sorts of neat stuff that's sort of found on the jungle floor that finds its way into natural waterways that the fish or shrimp utilize as natural breeding and feeding elements within their environment. In the past year, I've shown you setting up a 75-gallon aquarium for South American nanofish, including pencils and tetras, as well as apistogrammas, coreodoras, plecos, and some otocinclus. I've also recently set up a 20-gallon Blackwater aquarium for wild betta and some small rasboras. And both of these aquariums, while very different, are very successful and rely on the tannins released from botanicals, as well as the spawning surfaces provided to make these aquariums successful. Today we're going to do something different. I've set up 3 different sized aquariums with 3 different scapes to house 3 different species of freshwater dwarf shrimp. Now, in the wild, freshwater dwarf shrimp are found mainly in streams with very clear water, very low TDS, a fair amount of rock, a bunch of pods, and just a ton of grazing surfaces. Now, most often in the home aquarium, we set them up in our glass boxes with carefully aquascaped setups that are relatively clean from these grazing surfaces, as nobody wants to see a lot of algae in their aquarium. Because of this, we often will feed the aquariums and feed the shrimp in order to make sure they're getting the nutrition that they need. However, doing so, and the biggest problem I think with keeping shrimp, is overfeeding. It is just in our nature to want to feed these critters daily and make sure that they are thriving. But especially in a small aquarium, this can lead to a few problems. The first is instability of water chemistry. In a small volume of water, it doesn't take much for things to get out of whack, and this can be especially deadly to freshwater shrimp. Not only that, but overfeeding and food being blown around into the substrate can lead to secondary pests like planaria and hydra, or even detritus worms, or an abundance of freshwater snails. Things that aren't always necessarily harmful, but definitely not as attractive as we would like for our beautiful environments in our homes. So today I want to show you clear water botanical use. Botanicals are so much more than just for a black water environment. Botanicals break down naturally, and as they do, they're providing a ton of food for our shrimp specifically. And I just wanted to show you guys today the 3 different setups that I've created, talk a little bit about the species inside, and show you the botanicals that I've used. Now, Tannin will have a complete list of all the botanicals that I chose for these aquariums on their website, tanninaquatics.com. You can also find information there on how to prep them, how to use them, and just a lot of really great information in general on the science behind all of this. So the first aquarium that I set up I showed you guys last week, and that is an old 29-gallon Metaframe aquarium that I've had in service since I started in this hobby. I put in some simple stones, just a little bit of plant, a few twigs, and then I added in a bunch of botanicals. These shrimp are ones that I have been working with since about 2005, and they've done really, really well. However, I wanted to mimic a more natural environment for them to ensure that they're breeding as well as just looking their absolute best. I stuck in a bunch of different pods, and you can see that immediately the shrimp were interested and started grazing on these surfaces. The next aquarium I set up is a 75-gallon Caridina logmani aquarium. And Caridina logmani are commonly referred to as wild bees. I actually have some footage provided by Chris Lookop of their native habitat, and you can see that there is just so much for them to graze on. So I wanted to add a bunch of pods in this aquarium. These shrimp are pretty threatened in the wild, very difficult to come by in the hobby, but very versatile and beautiful in my opinion. So I added a ton of botanicals and the shrimp just swarmed to them. And the hope is that by adding these botanicals to the shrimp aquariums, I'll have to feed a lot less of the prepared foods available in the hobby in order for them to have a more natural, consistent, and constant grazing experience. In the wild, shrimp are eating 24/7, and that can be very difficult to duplicate in an aquarium, and I think that botanicals are a really excellent way to achieve this. The third aquarium that I set up is a 20-gallon long tangerine tiger aquarium. Now, tangerine tigers are another wild type Caridina shrimp that I just think are absolutely beautiful. Of course, I'm a bit biased because orange is my favorite color. This aquarium is utilizing, again, a lot of stone and just some easy low-light plants. The botanicals will again give them more grazing surfaces and look nice. Now, I prepared all these botanicals by boiling them for a really long time, and the ones that I chose are all very thick, sturdy botanicals, as I wanted them to have some longevity in the aquariums. Not all of this stuff is particularly cheap, but they last for a really long time. Unlike leaf litter, which breaks down relatively quickly and can make a bit of a mess. Now, historically, I have used leaf litter in my shrimp aquariums, but with the availability of all these cool products, I really wanted to step up my game and see what I could do for these critters. I particularly like a lot of the long pods and really thick leaf-shaped seeds and things that are available. Now, I've shown you guys in the past how to prepare the botanicals. It's very simple. You do a nice boil, and boiling is important. I know that a lot of people have been setting up Blackwater aquariums lately and saying that they recommend adding the tea to the aquarium, but I really think it's best to discard that water, because if you think about it, we're removing all the dust and dirt and potential pollutants that the pods or seeds or leaves could have encountered in their journey to our homes. So by using that water, you're essentially adding the impurities and the excess organics that we want to get rid of to the aquarium. If you want to stain your water, there are easier ways to do it. So the pods, bracts, and etc. that I chose release less tannins as they are super dense and are way longer lived in the aquarium. I then did secondary soaks, meaning I just put them in large containers with lids of water that I changed every day until the tea seemed to be a lot less intense. At that point, they were ready to add to the aquariums. I went around to each of the 3 aquariums I chose and added just, well, what I consider a small amount of botanicals in comparison to my Blackwater aquariums. It's important when you're adding botanicals to an aquarium that you do it gradually and really observe your aquarium for any changes in chemistry or behavior. Over time, I'll probably increase the amount of botanicals in these aquariums, so I recommend you're subscribed so that you don't miss any of those updates and to see the progress within each of these tanks. Now, Tannin has generously offered to give you guys a 10% discount on these botanicals. If you go to their website, which is tanninaquatics.com, you can enter the code Rachel10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. I really do encourage you guys to give some of these things a shot. In fact, I even use the bigger jungle pods or similar type pods as feeding dishes in my shrimp aquariums. You could simply place the food into the pod, which is nice because the shrimp will then graze inside the pod, and instead of all the little particles of food being blown into the substrate, it's a lot more contained. What I like to do is use a piece of PVC or even just the tube of a siphon to drop the food down into the feeding dish. It keeps my arms dry and it's really easy. So just to recap, I'm hoping that all of these botanicals will break down and provide really awesome grazing surfaces for all my shrimp, really provide excellent enrichment for the aquariums, and really they're just very, very beautiful. And really they're just super beautiful. I think they add an element of scale and interest to even really carefully aquascaped aquariums, and with their added benefits of the breakdown and food as well as grazing surfaces are just really a no-brainer for me in my shrimp aquariums. As always, I want to hear from you guys. Let me know down below. Are you going to try these? What do you think? And don't forget to go to Tannin Aquatics and get your 10% off. This code will be available for 30 days from this video for you guys should you want to try any of these botanicals. As always, thanks for your continued support, and I have a bunch more exciting videos utilizing botanicals coming up in the future.